Leave the stand. I'll take the stand. Yeah.
Take the mic, leave the stand. Is that the cannoli thing?
Cannoli. Good morning. Awesome. I promise you, Bobby will be back next week. All right. You only have to deal with us one more week, and then he's back. All right. All right, man. This has been a busy week. Those of you who helped. Oh yeah, kids, you can go. Yeah. I got the hand up like, hey, we still need kids. Yeah. This week has been a busy week. Those of you who helped with Kid Skills, thank you so much. I have a video. I'm not playing the video, mainly because I don't have the okay to have the faces on YouTube. I will, after services, I'll go ahead and put it up. If you want to watch it, you don't feel like you have to. But I think it was a great week doing the Kid Skills thing, getting to talk to some kids in the community and our kids. And then we got to partner with our sister church over in Spokane, which was great. They came and did a couple of service projects for us too. They moved all the bricks so Bobby and I don't have to, which is very nice. Yes, they were a big help. They were awesome. So it was a big week. It's been a busy couple of weeks for me because we had camp the week before that. So camp and then Kid Skills and next week we go to Romania. So it's going to be a busy 3 or 4 weeks for me and my wife at least. Yeah. Anyways, today we're going to continue on in Nehemiah. And I've named or labeled this today Spiritual Intensity to Sustainable Faithfulness. Nehemiah 12, so far, this will be the third sermon in Nehemiah 12. But the first part of Nehemiah, I'm really excited about this. I don't have any names. This is the first time in 4 sermons that I won't just have a list of names. I'm really excited about this. I don't have to try and pronounce anything or just skip them. None of that's going on. But 2 weeks ago, we had a list. And that list was really labeling out the foundations that the people had laid, where there had been faithful servants of God who had just done the right thing and didn't see anything out of it. But they served God anyways, and they led their family to serve as well. And so a couple of weeks ago, we saw just the foundations that had been laid for the people in Israel. And then last week, Mr. Bean, he went through and he talked about this joyous celebration that was going on, the dedication of the wall to God. The singers and musicians that assembled, the Levites purified themselves, the people, the gates, and the wall. The procession that went 2 different directions along the wall that met at the temple. Just praising God like crazy. This huge celebration, and then sacrifices are being offered. And I noticed as I was prepping for this, it seems like this book kind of goes in cycles a little bit. At least this chapter definitely does, right? It seems like they build something or earmark something to be remembered, and then there's some celebration and some revival and something going on. And so a couple of weeks ago we had, all right, let's remember the foundations that have been laid. And then last week we had the celebration that was just like excitement, right? And then this week we're going right back to, okay, there's something that needs to be done here. And so something that needs to be actually set for future generations. I think this is where we find ourselves. This huge celebration in the middle of chapter 12, surrounded by remembering the foundations laid and setting things in place to keep the people close to God for the long haul. This is not just a celebration. There's more to this. Because celebrations fade. I think that's really what we're talking about this week, is celebrations fade. So how do we make our faith sustainable? How do I maintain faithfulness when all of that starts to go away? The emotion dies down a little bit. Like I said, a couple weeks ago, it was Camp Sunday. And so we went to Black Diamond Camp this year. It's a picture of everybody that went. It was a lot of fun. It was actually one of the more enjoyable camp experiences that I've ever been a part of personally. Which is saying something, because I've been helping with camp since I started coming to the church a long time ago. I think the first time I helped was 2006. Stop laughing at that. But we did camp a couple of weeks ago. And I've been in youth ministry now long enough just as a volunteer and leading, to know that there are two types of campers. You do too. If you've ever gone to camp or have ever sent kids to camp, you know there are two types of campers. You have the camper, and we had a few of these. I know we did. She's not here this morning. I was going to point it out. But there's the camper who, they packed their bags a week before camp even started, right? They did their laundry. They're not touching that part of their laundry because I'm so excited to go to camp. Woo! Like, so excited. And then you have the campers who, church, the day of they're supposed to leave, are thinking, I should probably do my laundry. I might have a garbage sack somewhere to shove all my clothes in. I don't know. And then they get to camp, and they're the ones who, their clothes are everywhere. And hey, clean up, and they're like, okay. Like, yeah, there are two types of campers, all right? On the way to camp. But often, and that's as long as camp goes the way that you hope it goes, by the time you leave camp, you hope you only have one type of camper. You want a camper that's on fire for God. That's the whole point of going to camp. It's, yes, have fun. Yes, enjoy it. But man, while you're there, man, we're hoping for that connection to be made. To understand who God is and how great he is. By the time you get done, you want kids who are just on fire for God. And that's amazing. And those campers, they make decisions. They decide, you know what, when I get home, I'm going to start reading my Bible every day. And I'm going to tell all my friends about Jesus. And I'm never going to miss another youth group. And then Monday comes around and laundry piles up. Phones come out. The video games start getting played, and that passion fades. And we all know that, like, there's a term for it, camp high, right? And hopefully not that type of high, like the camp, like, but a camp high. Like, I feel so close to God right now, it's amazing. But it starts to fade, because that's an emotion. Why does it fade? Well, it's because good intentions aren't enough. Without structure, support, and habits, the fire can't last forever just in that. You can't always live up here. And so there needs to be structure to your life so that this becomes a long-lasting, sustainable faith. And that's not just true for teens. That's true for every one of us. We all go up and down, highs and lows. It's just life. And so have we set structure in our life to have a sustainable faith? I think that's where we see Nehemiah 12 today. Nehemiah 12, 44 through 47 comes in. The people had just experienced, we're still actually, and we'll talk about this, but they're still experiencing this celebration as this text shows up. And Nehemiah works to help them build this into a life attitude instead of just a mountaintop moment. So let's go ahead and look at our text. Chapter 12, if you have Bibles, open them up. If not, I have it on the screen, if you can read that. Verses 44 through 47. At that time, men were appointed to govern over the chambers for the treasurers, for the contributions, for the first fruits, and for the tithes, so that they might gather into them out of the fields of the cities the legal portions belonging to the priests and the Levites. This was because the celebration of Judah survived on the basis of the priests and the Levites, who, accompanied by the singers and the gatekeepers, attentively preserved the practices of their God and the practices of purification, according to the commandment of David and his son Solomon. From the former days of David and Asaph, there were leaders for the singers, the songs of praise and thanksgivings to God. All Israel in the days of Zerubbabel and Nehemiah gave the singers and the gatekeepers their portions, as specified daily. Likewise, they consecrated what was due to the Levites, who then consecrated what was due to the descendants of Aaron. If you would, bow your heads really quick, all right? Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, I ask that you would help us walk through this text today. I ask you would give me the words that would appropriately show what you had to say in this text, Father. I ask that you would be with everyone here so that they don't take offense to my words. And simply look at, this is meant to prick, so that they could become closer to you. In your name, amen. All right. So last week, Nehemiah chapter 12, Mr. Bean ended with this verse right here, verse 43. It says, "On that day they offered great sacrifices and rejoiced because God had given them great cause for rejoicing." On that day. And the only reason I bring this up is there's not a whole lot of things that we need to work through, but on that day, I think it's important, on that day, because the very next verse is not exactly the same, but it's very similar. On that day, next verse, at that time. Happens the exact same time. Every commentary I read says the same thing. This is going on at the same time. They're celebrating and Nehemiah is working at the same time to do this. Okay, so this is happening the exact same time that everybody in the country is just "Whoa!" All excited. Still experiencing the spiritual high. There's no separation of time wanted or needed here. Jump right in. Use the momentum. All right, we've got something. Let's build something for God. The people had just experienced this high point in worship, right? The dedication of the wall in verses 27 through 43. Immediately after, they appoint leaders to manage the inflow of resources to the temple. Not even after, at the same time. They're celebrating and setting up structure in the country. And this isn't just administration. This is a spiritual strategy. Spiritual strategy. These leaders were responsible to ensure that worship, ministry, and temple service continued consistently. And this isn't something they randomly decided, hey, we should go ahead and start setting some stuff up. This is actually something that we talked about a few chapters ago in chapter 10. In chapter 10, they had made a commitment to God. Hey God, we are going to do this for you because we know what you're doing around us. We can see the revival happening all around us, the joy that's going on. Our country is now safe. Hey, we're going to make a commitment. We're going to recommit to you, God. And so in chapter 10, at verse 39, I have it up here, both the children of Israel and the Levites should bring the contribution of grain, new wine, and fresh oil to the chambers, because the vessels of the sanctuary and the ministering priests, the gatekeepers and the singers, are there. We resolve not to forsake the house of our God. We promise God, we will do this. This is a follow-through. This week is a follow-through on the covenant the people made in Nehemiah 10. Nehemiah is helping them keep their word by giving them a system to keep it, to support it. And I think that's because passion alone won't sustain obedience. Excitement alone isn't enough. You need a plan. They didn't wait until they felt like they should do something for God again. You guys know what I mean? You had those spiritual highs where you're God, I promise I'm going to be at church every week, and I might only miss one for vacation. That's it. I'll be there every week. Because it was a really good sermon that Bobby gave. But the next week it went long, and you were watching your clock the whole time, and you just didn't feel it, and then, he's chuckling. Next week's going to be a little bit long. He hasn't been up here in a while. Passion isn't enough. It's not enough. Emotion is not enough. Have you made a decision? I'm going to do this because of God. Have you set up a system in your life? I go to church no matter what. It's who I am. It's who our family is. I do this. Or do you rely on how you feel? The people didn't want that to be the case for them. They wanted to set systems up to make sure I want to follow God no matter what. They built something that would carry them when the emotion faded. And just like after camp, what keeps us in following God after the hilltop moments? Is it an emotional thing? Is it a peer pressure thing? I know that if I don't show up, man, Jeremy's going to get on me because I wasn't there this week, and he's going to tell me, hey, where were you at, bud? I was tired, I'm sorry. Is it a peer pressure thing? Is that going to be enough for me? Is it just personal motivation? Do you need to put something in place in your life to obey God consistently? Do you need to set up a giving plan? Do you need a budget? Hey God, I commit I'm going to give tithes this year. Do you have a budget set out? Because it's really easy to say, God, I'm going to give this year, I promise. And then you have a bill that you forgot about. Well, God, next month I promise. And it just doesn't end up being something that matters to you very much. You set up a budget to make sure that you stick to that. How about a Bible reading plan? Man, every morning I'm going to wake up and I'm going to read my Bible with my coffee, and it's going to be amazing. Or maybe you like to read at lunch, or maybe before you go to sleep. Depends on who you are. But do you set something up in your life to know, all right, I have a timer set off, 8 o'clock every day. I'm going to read my Bible when that timer goes off. Or are you going to do it when you remember to do it? How about a regular time of prayer? Or just when you, honestly, feel like you're going through something hard? Do you have accountability with a friend or a mentor at church? Someone you trust, someone you know that loves God and is not going to try and lord something over you, but is simply trying to help you be closer to God. Do you have that person in your life? And this isn't legalism. I want you to understand that. This is not legalism. This is structure. It's different. Legalism is where I have a system in place, and I read my Bible every morning at 8 o'clock when I'm drinking my coffee, and if you don't do it, then you're wrong. That's not what I'm saying. Have you set up structure in your life to maintain faithfulness to God? The second part of this verse, in verse 44, says, so that they might gather into them out of the fields of the cities the legal portions belonging to the priests and Levites. This is because the celebration of Judah survived on the basis of the priests and the Levites. See, the people aren't just dutifully supporting the temple, they're joyfully supporting the temple. I want you to hear that again. They're not just dutifully doing what they're supposed to do, they're joyfully giving, because they understood the priests and the Levites were the ones that were pushing this celebration, this revival, this joy that they felt in God. This was because the celebration of Judah survived on the basis of the priests and the Levites. The word rejoiced, I don't think, is incidental. I think this is central to our text. They rejoiced. They delighted in the ongoing ministry of the priests and the Levites. They loved the word of God and its preaching therein. They loved it. Joy didn't come after everything was structured. It actually helped fuel the structure. Joy is what led them to go, I want my life to be like this all the time. I want to be as close to God as I possibly can. And so I want structure in our life. I want structure in our city. I want structure in our people to just stay close to God all the time. I want this for my life. I want this for my kids. This is the people going, I want to lay more foundations for God. This is not a reluctant or routine obedience. It's an overflowing of joy. And that overflowing of joy leads to sustained support for worship and ministry. And again, this is not legalism that we're talking about here. God's very specific about this. This is talking about giving. But God talks about, Paul writes about this in 2 Corinthians. Each of you should give what you have decided in your heart to give, not reluctantly or under compulsion. God wants a joyful giver. When you give to God, he wants it from a heart of love and joy. If you don't feel that when you give, don't. And understand that maybe it's because you're not feeling as close to God as you really want to be. Maybe it's because you haven't structured your life in a way that allows you to be. And you have, and fine, that there's some work to do to get there, but work towards that. Not because you have to, but because you want to. Nehemiah 8:10 said, "Then he said to them, 'Go your way, eat the fat, drink the sweet drink, and send portions to those to whom nothing is prepared. For this day is holy to our Lord. Do not be grieved, for the joy of the Lord is your strength.'" The joy of your Lord is the strength. Joy isn't some shallow emotion. It's a deep response to God's goodness. The joy of the Lord is your strength. The people weren't giving and serving to earn something. They were rejoicing in what they had already received from God. The giving came from a heart of rejoicing, of full joy in God. They weren't dragged into obedience, they ran into it. And man, I pray that that's who I am, that I run into obedience to God. My wife doesn't have to drag me there. I'll take that too if it needs to be. I pray that I run into obedience to God. If you want a lasting faith, you need more than just systems. You need to actually delight in God. Without that delight, without that joy, it's simply legalism. Having systems in place is great if you need them. I think we all do, to some degree, need them. But be careful when trying to apply the system that works for you onto another person. I think legalism will drain you. But coming from a joyful heart, man, that fuels you up. It's an excitement. This joy in God should cause us to want to do anything and everything that God wants from us. So the question is, what would cause our joy to wane or to falter? How is joy lost? Why don't we always feel this joy? And why do I need a system in place to help me when I'm not feeling the joy, but I know I still want to be faithful to God? What are my joy stealers? I have a few. Joy stealers. Thief of joy. Nice little cartoon. All right, the first one. A joy stealer in my life, unconfessed sin. Unconfessed sin. Sin that separates us from intimacy with God. Something that I know I should be talking to God about, but I just can't, I just don't want to. Because if I talk to God about it, I know I'm going to have to deal with the sin in my life that I just don't want to talk about yet. Sin separates us from intimacy with God. It dulls our sensitivity to His Spirit, and it burdens my conscience nonstop, and I just don't want to. And so I then don't feel the joy in coming to God's house anymore, because I'm going to be reminded I'm doing something I'm not supposed to. It's talked about in Psalms 32, 3-4. "When I kept silent, my bones wasted away through my groaning all day long. For day and night your hand was heavy on me. My strength was changed into the drought of summer." When I kept silent, when I wouldn't confess my sin to you, God. How about this? Spiritual neglect. Number 2. When we drift from prayer, from reading the scriptures, from worship, from my community, when I drift from all of that, I often stop being reminded of who God is and what He's done for me. When I drift from God, when I drift from my community here, when I drift from reading my Bible, all of a sudden I stop remembering, why do I go so often? Why is it that I give my tithes every month? It'd be so much easier if I didn't have to. And why is it do I sing when I go to church? Let's talk about Hebrews 2, 1-3. "Therefore we should be more attentive to whatever we have heard, lest we drift away. For if the word spoken by angels was true, and every sin and disobedience received a just recompense, how shall we escape if we neglect such a great salvation?" How should we escape if we neglect such a great... I need to remember how great the salvation is that God has given me. If we ever stop remembering how great God's salvation is, I'm experiencing spiritual neglect. Because it is an amazing thing that God has offered freely. How about prolonged suffering and trials? That can steal my joy. Extended hardship can wear us down emotionally and spiritually. And then this often leads into number 2, spiritual neglect. Because I feel beat up. I didn't put a verse up here because I had chapters. But the one I was thinking of the most, and it's my favorite prophet in the Bible, so I'm going to bring him up all the time. I love Elijah. Calling down fire from God is like the coolest thing ever. And then like superhuman speed outrunning chariots. And immediately a queen says, hey, I want to kill you. And he goes into deep despair. Calling down fire from God and running superhuman speed. And a woman says, I want to kill you. And he goes into deep despair. And it seems like out of place, but there are times where just trials and suffering happens. And what I need is to be closer to God, not farther. What I need is God's presence, God's people's presence in my life. And often it tends to go the other way. Number 4, how about joy stealer of comparison or envy? When I focus on what others have, their success, their comfort, their ease of life, I can start to feel discontent. Psalm 73, 1-3 talks about this a little bit. Truly God is good to Israel, to the pure of heart. But as for me, my feet almost stumbled. My steps had almost slipped, for I was envious at the boastful. I saw the prosperity of the wicked. I start looking at the world around me, and why does the world have it so easy? And I seem to struggle, and I'm God's child. Why am I struggling, and the world has got it easy? That can steal my joy. Number 5, bitterness or unforgiveness. See, this is a joy killer. Chains our hearts to pain and an offense that someone has laid on me. And Hebrews 12 talks about that a little bit. Pursue peace with all men, and the holiness without which no one will see the Lord. Watching diligently so that no one falls short of the grace of God, lest any root of bitterness spring up and cause trouble, and many become defiled by it. Bitterness and unforgiveness is a scary one. When someone says something wrong to me, do I take offense to it? When Cameron says something just in the wrong tone of voice, and I think he had something he meant by that, I know he did, because he knows me and he knows that would offend me. Why would he say it that way? That could creep in and cause bitterness in my life. And all of a sudden, I'm not focused on God. I'm not focused on his community. I'm focused on what he said, and that was mean, and how dare he? Just a little too excited about that. All right. Last one on my list, and know that I had a list of like 12, and I just didn't, it was too much to go through. A lot can steal my joy. But the last one on my list is idolatry. Placing anything, literally anything, success, my job, relationships, boyfriend, girlfriend, friends, my comfort. It's a lot easier to watch from home. Sports. Man, Seahawks are going to do great this year, I know it. Placing literally anything above God steals my joy. My joy in God is stolen. Joy fades when our hope is misplaced. neglecting God and trying to replace him in your life with something that isn't built to last. It's talked about in Jeremiah 2:13. For my people have committed two evils. They have forsaken me, the fountain of living waters, and hewn out for themselves cisterns, broken cisterns, that can hold no water. Why am I trying to get water out of a well that I dug, rather than from God himself, the living water? Why am I trying to fill myself up with something I can build, rather than knowing that I can't build anything worth anything? It's going to leak. Why am I doing that over here instead when God says, here, have my living water? It steals my joy. I need to ask myself, am I allowing anything to steal my joy in God himself? And if I am, why? Why am I allowing that? Do I love that thing that is dragging me down so much that I won't allow myself to have joy in God? Why am I holding on to the anchor as it falls down to the deeps instead of letting go? Am I allowing anything to steal my joy? Let's move on. Verse 45. Who, accompanied by the singers and the gatekeepers, attentively preserved the practices of their God and the practices of purification. Everyone had a role. In setting up these systems, everyone had a role. It was community driven. I want you to understand, Nehemiah is writing about this, and Nehemiah is the one that's facilitating, but the rules that are being set up are being set up by the people. We want to follow God. Us as a community want to follow God. Let's set systems up so that we can do it well. This wasn't Nehemiah ruling for results. This was driven by the people themselves. Priests and Levites led in worship and purification. Singers maintained worship through music. Gatekeepers protected the sacred places. Each person contributed differently, but intentionally. This wasn't I guess I'm serving. I'm going to serve God. No one person did everything. It's not possible. But everyone did something. And here's why I think this matters. I think faithful churches, and that's what we're talking about, being faithful for the long haul. Faithful churches aren't built around a single person cracking the whip, driving the charge all by themselves. Our church isn't faithful simply because Bobby and I can guilt trip you guys into doing something. That doesn't make us a faithful church. It might produce something for a little while. But really, faithful churches are built when ordinary people embrace their role to work for God. A faithful church is driven by you guys. I have a part in that, but it's just a part. You guys are as needed as anybody else, filling your role for God. Continuing on, according to the commandment of David and his son Solomon. So I think this passage right here goes back to what was at the beginning of chapter 12. Back to where Nehemiah noted the faithful, godly leaders who had done the exact same thing that he was pushing for here. To be faithful yet again. There were foundations to build upon. There's a foundation that David built and his son followed in, Solomon. Why would we not build on those foundations? Why would we try and build over here instead? Let's build on the foundations that have been laid before us. Why would we start building somewhere else? Nehemiah wasn't just being practical, he was being biblical here. David and Solomon had modeled structured, ordered worship generations earlier. It's talked about in 1 Chronicles 25 through 26. Structured, ordered worship. Sustainable faith isn't invented, it's continued. Final verse 47. All Israel, in the days of Zerubbabel and Nehemiah, gave the singers and the gatekeepers their portions, as specified daily. Likewise, they consecrated what was due to the Levites, who then consecrated what was due to the descendants of Aaron. Everyone gave, not just the wealthy or the prominent. They gave consistently, daily portions they gave, not just in bursts of emotion. They gave to support others in ministry, ensuring that the work continued. Are you giving consistently to support the ongoing work of the ministry? And I don't just mean financially here, because it could easily just go that direction. I think that's part of it. Where my money goes, my heart tends to go, and if it goes to God, great. But that's not just what God's talking about here. Are you giving to ministry? How about relationally? Are you growing closer to your church family around you? Are you sticking around after church to talk, or you want to be the first one out the door? Does that matter to you at all? To be a part of the church family? Are you willing to give in that way? To see someone in the back who maybe hasn't been talked to in a while, or maybe in the front, that could probably use an encouraging word. Are you willing to be a part of that? How about prayerfully? When's the last time you prayed for sunbreak? Have you ever prayed for sunbreak? And not just for the church to grow. The only reason why that matters is that means we're reaching more people. How about the community around sunbreak? The people who desperately need to know Christ. Have you ever prayed for them? Are you giving in that way? And that doesn't even take very much. To just 5 minutes a day pray for the people around our church. Give me an opportunity to reach them. Let me speak to one person willing to talk about you, God. Just one person. This week, give me one person that I can talk to. I don't need to invite them to church. Just let me talk to them about you. Are you praying for that opportunity? Have you made it a commitment to do so weekly? I think that'd be a great thing if every single day, every single week, we had everybody in this church praying for the community around us. You want to see a revival and a celebration, that's how that happens. Not by accident, on purpose. Is church a chore? Is it something you feel like you have to do, or is it something you cherish? Do you look forward to spending time here with its people? Or are you watching the clock, wondering when Bobby's going to get done? Keep on picking on him. I know I'm going to get picked on next week. It's fine. I'll be in another country. It won't matter. In a healthy church, no one is expected to carry the weight alone. Shared responsibility means shared blessing. When we do this together, we share in a blessing, guys. And a shared blessing means we have shared strength. It's not all on me. It's on us. If we want a faith that lasts, not just a moment, but a life, then we need more than just emotion. We need structure that supports obedience, joy that fuels our walk, and a community that shares the load. That's what Nehemiah is building here. In the midst of this celebration going on all around him, Nehemiah is building something that will last. Doesn't mean that they won't falter. We'll talk about that next week. He's working on building something that lasts. Not just a wall, but a way of life beyond the emotional highs. And I think that's what Jesus invites us to. Not just some private belief that I can go live in a commune somewhere and never have to talk to the outside world. A whole life of sustainable faith that will carry me through this dirty world around me. Anchored in grace, strengthened by joy, and lived out together. I talked to you at the beginning of this a little bit about camp. And if you want to know more, I'd love to talk to you about camp, because like I said, this is probably one of my favorite experiences ever at camp. But one of the cool things that we did at camp this last 2 weeks ago is the students that we had, Leanne had a group and I had a group, and we were the only leaders there for 22 kids. But we both had a group, and one of the night experiences that we had was there was a cross for each group to carry. And so the entire group, I don't have a picture of it there, but the entire group carried the cross. And it wasn't overly heavy, but it wasn't light either. And they carried it all the way around camp. Maybe a mile, maybe not even that long. It was a decent range though. And they also had this burlap sack that one person had to carry. And along the way, as they're carrying this cross, we would stop, and they were wearing these white t-shirts, and along the way, they would stop and they would put mud on their shirts. And they'd put a few more rocks in the burlap sack. And there were about 8 or 9 stops along the way, and by the time we got to the end, you can actually see this picture here. The sack was too heavy for one person to carry all by themselves. So that's Max. He's helping hold the burlap sack because it was too much for Landon to carry all by himself. And then we got to the top of the hill. And there's a spot for you to place the cross. And so they placed the cross, and they dropped the bag of rocks, the sack, on the ground. And the leaders explained that the shirts covered in mud, by the time we got to the end, they were covered in mud. Their hands are gross, their shirts are gross. That the shirts represent the stain of sin that we can't get rid of. On this white, perfect shirt that they had beforehand that had never been worn, there's no getting that mud out of that shirt. The stain, a sin stain, that's what it represents. And they invited them to lay that sin-stained shirt over the cross, because God says, I will cleanse you. Christ says, I am pure. Let me take that on. And then they have this big burlap sack of rocks that represent the burdens that we try and carry all by ourselves, that we can't carry all by ourselves. And so they had them empty the rocks and then lay them around the foot of the cross, because Christ says, I will carry your burdens. And fortunately for me, not that anyone was looking at me, but it was hot that week, and I was a little bit sweaty. I started crying because a picture, and I have a picture of it, the kids all got on their hands and knees and were arranging their burdens around the foot of the cross. It was emotional. And I know not just for me. Watching the kids arrange their burdens at the foot of the cross was intense, actually. Probably one of the coolest experiences I've ever personally remembered from teen camp. And I know many of the kids felt this camp high afterwards. And feel God moving and pushing. Feel God working. We sat around the fire and talked about it afterwards, or the fire pit, talked about it afterwards, and there were emotions. But emotions fade. Camp ends. Walls eventually crack. But in the end, Jesus remains. See, that's why Nehemiah didn't just stir up a moment. He helped the people build something that would last. A faith with structure, not just hype. A joy that fuels obedience. I want to serve God with everything I am because I love God. I take joy in God, not just some temporary passion. A community that shares the load not isolated, striving by myself. I've got my church family with me. See, Nehemiah wasn't just building walls. He was building the way of life that could survive long after some emotional moment was gone. The people had made promises in chapter 10, and in chapter 12, we see them putting systems, joy, and shared responsibility in place to keep those promises. They said, God, I want to do this. Help me do this, because I can't do it on my own. It's how real faith lasts, not just through highs, but through habits. Just like at the cross at camp, it all points us back to the one who carries us, the one who says, I will carry your burdens. I will cleanse any stain because God will look at me, the perfect one. Jesus, the foundation of a faith that truly endures through all the highs and the lows.
End our day with some worship. You're welcome to stay seated, or you can stand and sing with us. Before I spoke a word, you were singing over me. You have been so good to me. Took a breath, you breathed your life in me. You have been so kind to me. And all the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, finds till I'm found, leaves the 99. I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it, still you give yourself away. And all the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. When I was your foe, still your love fought for me. You have been so good to me. When I felt no worth, you paid it all for me. You have been so kind to me. And all the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, finds till I'm found, leaves the 99. I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it, still you give yourself away. And all the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain Jesus and my Father, thank you for bringing us together today, Lord, to learn more about you and learn what you have for us, God. And please just keep all of what Kevin preached to us and what your Spirit brought to us today, Lord, to stick with us and to help us remember why we worship you and why we can choose to continue worshiping you, Lord, and just be with our hearts and our minds and help us to show that love to everyone around us and to be that example, Lord.